Yeah, you can just see it. The drive-bys are just ecstatic. They're so happy to have Obama back home, back in Washington, back from Hawaii. Now they can resume the soap opera. Put him as the lead character of the Washington soap opera back on the air. And, of course, income inequality and unemployment extension benefits happen to be the two plot lines of the soap opera today. And they will be for as long as it takes to make people forget the misery of Obamacare and the misery of Obama-economics, or economics. And hi, folks, how are you? Rush Limbaugh, and another 3 hours of broadcast excellence straight ahead. Just a delight to be with you. The telephone number is 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. If you don't, you can forget the number. If you want to send an email, it's lrushbo@eibnet.com. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are having a record-breaking cold snap in many parts of the country, and right on schedule. Right on schedule, the media have to come up with a way to make it sound like it's completely unprecedented. Because they've got to find a way to attach this to the global warming agenda. And they have. It's called the polar vortex. The dreaded polar vortex. Do you know what the polar vortex is? Have you ever heard of it? Well, they just created it for this week. And it's, of course, you can't. Actually, there is a piece. I've got a piece in the stack that actually makes the case that all of this frigid, chilling cold is due to global warming. Strange as it may sound, it says. Other wackos are saying it's a great example of climate change, but regardless, the agenda is that we're responsible, we're causing it, we have to pay the price. And so any weather extreme now is said to be man-made, and therefore it fulfills the leftist agenda on this. Now, in their attempt, the left, the media, everybody, to come up with a way to make this sound like it's something new and completely unprecedented, they've come up with this phrase called polar vortex. They've even got, if you've been watching television, they've created a graphic. All the networks have it. And it's basically it consists of a view of the planet if you are right above the North Pole. And they put this big purple blob, or blue blob, or red blob, depending on the network you're looking at, over the entire North Pole. And they call that the polar vortex. It actually sounds like a crappy science fiction movie to me, but anyway, that's what they're calling it. And it makes it sound like the jet stream is being forced lower across the United States. Something's happening. See, normally the polar vortex stays up there in the polar region. But something is causing it to dip down like it's never happened before. We've never had Arctic air blasts before. And remember now, the key to all this is you have to understand one of the fundamental concepts of man-made global warming is ice melting at the poles. One of the ways they have always sought to convince you that the world is warming is not the climate where you live, but rather where you aren't, where you can't see what is really happening. So they tell you the ice is melting at the North Pole and the South Pole. And then they publish pictures, which are fraudulent pictures of poor little polar bears stranded on 3 square feet of ice that you are told used to be the North Pole. That's how fast it's melting. The polar bears are in deep trouble. Al Gore participated in it. It's an abject total fraud. Well, obviously there is no melting of ice going on at the North Pole. If they're going to tell us the polar vortex is responsible for this cold, then means record cold is also happening at the North Pole, which means there isn't any ice melting. And we know about the global warming expedition that went down to the South Pole, to Antarctica, to prove that the ice is melting, and they got stuck. And then the rescuers got stuck. And then the people rescuing the rescuers got stuck. But never mind that. In none of the stories about the global warming expedition going to the South Pole needing to be rescued, not once did you see any reference to their mission. They were just exploring the Antarctic, the news said. No, what they were doing was going down to prove the ice was melting, and they got stuck in it because they ran into ice where they didn't expect to find any. So no matter how they go at this, they're losing. They're in the middle of a hoax. They're perpetrating a hoax, but they are relying on their total dominance of the media to lie to you each and every day about climate change and global warming. And so they've created a polar vortex. And the polar vortex, something's happened. And that cold air, which normally stays in the North Pole, it doesn't bother us. Something's happening. Something deeply mysterious and perhaps tragic is happening. Whatever it is that keeps the polar vortex vortexed in the Arctic Circle is vanishing. And that cold air is coming to us. Normally it stays up there, but now it's down here. How did it get here? That's the deepening mystery. That is the crisis. That is what is man-made. Man is destroying the invisible boundaries that keeps that air up there. How did it get cold in previous winters? Well, it got cold in previous winters, but see, as far as most people are concerned, this is as cold as it's ever been in their lives. Well, but Snerdley, I'm just telling you their technique. Forget truth. The truth in the Democrat Party, the truth in the American left never intersect. Most people, you take a 30-year-old. To him, history began the day he was born. He doesn't know how cold it was 70 years ago unless he's told. He doesn't care. He thinks what's happening now is either the best or the worst, whatever it is, ever. Everybody thinks that. Everybody's historical perspective begins with the day they were born, unless they learn history, which is what we're about here, is teaching it. So my point is, you have a lot of people who are believing that this is as cold as it's ever been. You might think that flies in the face of global warming. Global warming is not climate change, and we folks are causing all of this. You must understand the hoax continues. So now we got the polar vortex, complete with graphics, a giant blue, red, whatever blob up there. And it's escaping. Whatever keeps it there isn't working anymore. Oh, no! And that's why we have these record colds. And man is doing that. This is how it works. In truth, folks, this is why it gets cold every winter. Arctic air finds its way down to us. And some winters, the Arctic air comes further south sooner than in other winters. But it always happens. That's why it gets cold. Where does the cold air come from? It always comes from the North Pole. It always goes to Canada first and comes to us. And it happens via the jet stream. Now, the jet stream is part of this, too. The jet stream is dipping down lower across the United States. That also said to be new and unique. In reality, this happens every winter as well, to a greater or lesser extent. But if they can make it sound new, this is the point, if they can make it sound new and unprecedented, and they can blame it all on man, particularly Republicans. They can blame it all on progress. They can blame it all on success, which leads to excess. Success means people use more than their share of things, like oil and fossil fuels, and they destroy the planet when they do this. You may think this is ridiculous, folks. I'm telling you, some low information people eat this up when they're told this. There's an article, I referenced this a moment ago. It's in the Daily Beast, which is a Tina Brown website. So it means the leftists love this site. Global warming is freezing you, is the headline. It's journalistic malpractice. I'm telling you, the truth and the left never intersect anymore. It's stunning how everything, their entire agenda is based on one lie after another. global warming is freezing you. And the article claims that man-made global warming is slowing down the jet stream. And that's why the cold air is coming down. Global warming is slowing down the jet. They don't explain how. They just say it must be. Because, see, they've bought it. They have bought hook, line, and sinker, man-made global warming. They believe it. I've told you, I read the tech blogs. It's stunning, folks. They believe it. There's no questioning it. In a lot of sectors, particularly millennials, young people, those who think they're experts in science, there's no doubt. They just believe it. And so there has to be an explanation. And whatever man is doing has caused the jet stream to slow down, and that is permitting the polar vortex, cold Arctic air. Now, let's say that President Obama called his science advisor. What is his science advisor's name? Clapper? No, that's the national security guy. The science guy. The science guy is John Holdren. Do you know what John Holdren was and is tight with Paul Ehrlich, the fraud behind the population bomb? No, I kid you not. John Holdren participated with Ehrlich in the bet that Julian Simon made with Ehrlich, and Ehrlich lost it. Holdren is as wacko leftist as Ehrlich is. Holdren's a science advisor. So let's say this. Let's say that Obama, because it's really hot. Let's say it's August and it's 95 degrees and that's cool. And Obama said, we need to cool off Washington. So he calls up Holdren. He said, Mr. Holdren, John, I want you to take action now to slow down the jet stream so that whatever that Arctic air mass is comes down. I want the autumnal blast now. I don't want to wait till November for it. So, John, do what you have to do to get the jet stream slowed down so that Arctic air comes south sooner to cool everybody off in August. Could Holdren or anybody do it? No. It isn't possible. There's not one thing you could do while leaving civilization untouched. It's absurd, but they're out there promulgating this stuff and taking advantage of every weather. What they don't know is, this is either Gallup or Pew. They've gone to the well too many times. On the long list of issues in a poll, people were asked to rank in terms of importance. Global warming is third from the bottom. I mean, they've really shot their wad on this. They've overdone it. And the reason that this has happened is you can't go to this well, you can't talk about warming and heating and melting and rising sea levels while people are freezing their rear ends off. And so they've really, but they're not giving up. I mean, the left never does. It is part of their agenda to grow government, raise taxes, limit freedom, and control people. It's it's never going to go away. They're never going to admit that they're wrong about this. They're going to continue to promulgate this hoax as long as they can. In fact, this Daily Beast story, which again is headlined, "Global Warming is Freezing You," article ends by saying, isn't science neat? I guess it is if you can rewrite the laws of physics and if you can rewrite the laws of atmospherics to suit your political agenda. I guess science is neat. Or if you can rewrite the terms of your religion to fit your agenda. Gosh, I get religion would be neat too. But then it wouldn't be science. That man-made global warming has nothing to do with science. Anyway, by the way, speaking of all this, U.S. Coast Guard icebreaker on its way to rescue the crews on the Russian and Chaikov's ships that are now stuck in the ice in Antarctica. There are 2 rescue ships stuck in the ice in Antarctica. Why don't they ever try to get the jet stream to come from the South Pole? You know, it's summertime down there now. Why don't they get the jet stream from down there to counter the jet stream from the North Pole? I mean, if we're doing something that causes a jet stream to slow down, let's speed the one up from Antarctica.